So I did my independent study on something I'm very passionate about, sports analytics, advanced statistics in baseball. So, when my mom was about 38 weeks pregnant with me, my dad took his annual trek down to Florida for Yankee spring training. At this time, obviously I was coming just a few weeks, and they weren't sure on a name between Jacob or Jared. And then when my dad went down, he became enamored with Derek Jeter, who had already brought back 2 world championships to the Yankees. And he would later bring another 3. And so he asked my mom, can we name our son Derek? And I don't know what compelled her to say yes. I think it's a nice name. I like it personally, but here I am today as Derek Saul. And so a baseball legacy was thrust upon me. Luckily, I do love baseball, and specifically the Yankees. I don't think I really had a choice whether to be a Yankees fan or not, but I am. And my love for baseball converted to me playing baseball as well. I've loved playing baseball. I've played since T-ball. Recently just finished my career on the varsity baseball team in Hanford Park. Okay. And so I have a lot of cards. I would say, I've never actually counted them all. I'd say it's somewhere in the range of 10,000. I think, Mom and Dad, I think that's a pretty accurate number. There are at least 6, there are about 6 bins about this big filled with them. And some of my more prized ones are in binders. I brought one today. And I counted 325 Yankees cards in here. And a lot more other ones. And so, starting when I was about 5 years old, I was starting to get into baseball more, starting to get into playing it and watching the Yankees. I got really into collecting baseball cards, and specifically the backs of the baseball cards. I liked the pretty pictures in the front, I liked trading them, but it was really studying the statistics in the back of them that I was really interested in. For the next 5 years or so, I'd wake up about an hour early every morning to sort my cards, put them into binders, and my favorite thing was to try to create an optimal lineup based upon the statistics. And yes, I was nerdy back then. I guess I still am now. And the statistics on the back, I studied them enough that I became known for baseball trivia. So at a baseball camp that I attended when I was, I believe it was 2nd grade, Montlini down at Newark Academy. There was always trivia right after camp ended, so we cooled down. It was in the summer months, so we needed the time in the AC before we went home in our parents' cars. And every day there would be a few trivia questions, and I was known for being really, really good at them. I was told, my dad reminded me of one recent one that I remember that I knew the first Yankees captain. It was Hal Chase, and they were actually New York Highlanders at that time. Well, that's not really statistics, but I've always really loved statistics in the back of baseball cards. And so here is, I'd say, my number 1 binder. And I found this morning when I was looking in the basement, so I wanted to bring in a couple props. And so, actually, I didn't know it still is here, but I still have, it says Derek Saul KF, so this was my toy that I brought in, I guess for show and tell in kindergarten. I guess I wasn't too into toy trucks. So this has always been something that's followed me, that I've always been very passionate about. And so, sorry to miss, but this is my literature. There's no Shakespeare on here. So there's a lot of baseball encyclopedias. If you notice the years, like 2005, 2007, so this sounds like 6 and 8 years old there, and I brought the 2005 one, and it's still a little dense for me to read now. It's basically all just very size 4 font numbers, but this is what I love. And so somebody that came before me that had some very similar interests was Bill James. And so Bill James, he's kind of known as the pioneer of advanced baseball statistics. 40 years ago, in 1977, he was working as a security guard at a beans factory, but he completed about college degree. He's a very smart guy, but he's working in menial jobs. He really hadn't found his calling, and he loved to write, and he loved baseball, and he loved math. And so he turned this into the baseball abstract, which he's published them annually before the season. It's a season preview, and it examines questions using statistics as the basis. And so when he first started the baseball abstract in 1977, he had about 75 readers, but he stuck with it, and eventually he became at the forefront of the advanced statistical movement. And so the Society of American Baseball Research, that's an organization that he's involved in. The reason I included that is if you ever hear me refer to advanced baseball statistics as sabermetrics, it comes from that, S-A-B-R. And so this is from a 1981 feature on him in Sports Illustrated. And you can't really see it, but there's a formula up there of his runs created formula that's actually still in use today, and you'll see a variation of that later. And so here he is in the outfield grass at Kansas City Royal Stadium, and he's calculating stuff. He's not throwing the baseball. He doesn't have a bat in his hands. And so even though I played baseball, I will not be in the MLB one day, unfortunately, unless I have a random growth spurt, or all of a sudden I can throw 95 miles an hour. And so this is a lot more up my alley, and I think it's really cool that it's someone that had similar passions as myself and was able to make this out of this, and make this out of his passion. And he's executive with Red Sox now, and he's been credited with bringing 3 championships. So, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard about, the movie and book Moneyball. And so this is Billy Beane, he was portrayed by Brad Pitt in the movie, if you had seen the movie. And so Billy Beane, he was actually a former player, but then he embraced statistics. And the Oakland A's, they were a small market team. They had to look for a way to compete with other teams that had a lot more money. And so he started to embrace the work of Bill James and using advanced statistics as a way to evaluate players. And so he did a lot of making advanced statistics and sabermetrics a lot more prevalent. And the A's have been a very successful organization since he's been there. And now advanced baseball statistics, where they weren't as prevalent at the time when Bill James first starting, a lot of teams slowed to adopt it. Now it's very common throughout any organization. So here's a quote from Moneyball that I really liked. The inability to envision a certain kind of person doing a certain kind of thing because you've never seen someone who looks like him do it before is not just a vice, it's a luxury. What begins as a failure of the imagination ends as market inefficiency. When you rule out an entire class of people from doing a job simply by their appearance, you are less likely to find the best person for the job. So this is kind of a baseball and statistical version of Don't Judge a Book by its cover. A lot of times what MLB scouts will do is they like to look at the appearance of someone. Are they 6'5" and muscular? Do they have the tools, whereas they're not looking at actual production? And so Moneyball details Billy Beane and the A's using sabermetrics to move away from that. Okay, so now moving into my own some of my own work, and that was I had researched Moneyball and other baseball research the first half of the year, and so then I moved towards making my own models. And so batting average is hits divided by at bats. That's split up, and then WAR, which is wins above replacement. The formula for that is pretty long and convoluted. So it's batting runs plus base running runs plus fielding runs plus positional adjustment plus league adjustment plus replacements divided by runs per win. And what that's measuring is basically how valuable a player is. So if they're worth 10 wins, that means that if you were to take that player away from their team, that the team would be 10 games worse. And weighted on base average, it's a better it's a more relevant statistical analysis of batting average. And so it looks at the expected run value of each plate appearance. And so if you look, so your team is expected to score 0.69 runs per 0.722 per hit by pitch, 0.88 per single, 1.271 per double, 1.616 per triple, 2.101 per home run, and that's divided by total plate appearances. And so that's kind of looking at a way to try to better represent the value that somebody gets from a plate appearance as opposed to just hits, because obviously a home run is going to be more valuable than a single to your team. And then thank you, Mr. Evans, for teaching me this one, the correlation coefficient. So I ran a few linear regressions, and so I only looked at positive relationships. So you really need to worry about between 0 and 1. And so a number, a correlation coefficient R closer to 1 represents a stronger relationship. And so 0 is a relationship. So the first linear regression that I ran was wins versus batting average. And so I took each 2016 team, how many wins they got, and then their team batting average, and I ran a model based upon that. And so, as you can see, there is a relationship, but it's pretty weak. There's just an R value of 0.341. So this kind of shows that batting average is not that relevant to team success, that we should look into more advanced factors. And so then I looked at weighted on base average versus wins. And so for this, there's a lot stronger correlation. The R value is 0.574. And so it's almost double the correlation between a team's success and their WOBA as opposed to their batting average. And so this kind of goes to show why we need to look beyond the traditional statistical measures to evaluate team success. Okay, and then wins versus WAR. So WAR is kind of the end-all be-all advanced statistic. Not that it's necessarily the best, but it's definitely most all-encompassing. And so I looked at a team's total WAR versus their wins over the last 2 seasons, and the R value is 0.855, which means there's a very strong relationship between the team's WAR and how many wins they get. And so this is a pretty good predictive value. If you can predict how much WAR a team can get, then you can do a pretty good job of predicting how many wins they get. And so I tried to do exactly that. So there's a lot more. This is as diluted as I could really make it. There's still a formula, and I know there's still a lot to it. So before the season, every year there are over-unders released from Las Vegas casinos. So say I believe the Cubs were at 95.5 games, their over-under was. And so if they win, if they win more than that, it's over and you win money, and if they go under that, they say they win 95 games or less, then you win money if you go under. So I used the model using this equation. So I would plug in the expected WAR from Fangraphs before the season based upon the players that the team had. I plugged that into the formula for as the X value, and so that gave the projected wins. And so that would be over 162 games. I prorated everything just to the season through the season thus far. And so each team has played about 65 games. And so my formula, the projected amount of wins for the Cubs was 35. So let's just look at the Cubs. And the over-under prorated was 39. And so there's a 4-game difference at that point. And so I picked the 5 teams that had the biggest difference with their over-under and their projected wins, and also the Yankees and Mets, because I figured people would care about that. And so my model would have said to go under on the first 3, and then also the Mets, and over on 4 through 6. And as of now, my model would have been accurate 6 out of 7 of the times, which is pretty good percentage. It's a pretty small sample size, as Mr. Evans would tell you. I can't be 6 for 7 and say my model's perfect. It'll work for that percentage of the time every time. But I think my model did a pretty good job, and that's all that I have. I'm definitely interested in kind of tweaking my model a little more and seeing maybe I put my money where my mouth is next year if I feel really comfortable with my model. But we'll see. So that's all I have.
Does anybody have any questions for Derek?
So putting your money where your mouth is, what with the odds versus?
Yeah. So
what if you made if you were right 6 out of 7 times, what would you have earned?
I mean, it depends what you put down.
No percentage. I mean, like.
You would have won six. So say you put down $100 on each team, you would have won $600. Then the one you lost, you wouldn't have gotten. So you would have gotten whatever six.
But they're not like it's not on.
It's 6 out of 7 would be the percentage profit. For the 6 divided by 7 is 86%, I think.
Would they all have the same
83.3,
odds?
but I don't want to.
But would it all would be the same odds?
For
Like each team would have the same.
so
Odds?
I mean I could pull up what I was looking at. So for each casinos will release a list of over-unders for wins and expected amount of wins. So whatever they run their formulas and say the Cubs were expected to win about 96.5 games. And so if you think they're going to win 97 or more games, then you'd say over. If they win less than 96.5 games, then you'd say under. And so if you're right, you win the money. If you're wrong, you don't.
The bookie would set the rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
I just-
somewhat illegal.
There are legal online methods. I did not partake in anything. We go on family vacations to Atlantis sometimes, so I did not partake in anything.
Okay.
I promise.
Just checking.
That's all. Are there any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.